People who've won the lottery. How did it destroy or rebuild your relationships? Won $8.7 million, lost my fiancé, and learned that money doesn't change you. It just gives everyone else permission to show their true colors. I'm sitting here with a stack of legal papers thicker than my old relationship was deep, watching my lawyer's meter run at $400 an hour, while my ex-boyfriend tries to convince a judge he deserves half my lottery winnings. Spoiler alert, we were never married. Hell, we weren't even engaged. But apparently, love means never having to say you're sorry. You just have to say you're owed. Let me back up to when I still believed people were fundamentally decent. March 15th. I'd been buying the same numbers for 3 years. Birthdays, anniversaries, the usual sentimental garbage that makes you feel like fate owes you something. Robin always rolled his eyes when I spent $10 on tickets, calling it a tax on people who can't do math. Real supportive, that one. The numbers came up on a Tuesday, all six, $8.7 million after taxes. I called Robin first, obviously. He was at work, some soul-crushing accounting job he'd been complaining about for the 2 years we'd been together. I could barely get the words out. We won, I said. We fucking won. Notice I said we. That was my first mistake. Robin came home with champagne and takeout from the expensive Thai place we never ordered from. He kept saying we too, which felt natural at the time. We were a team, right? Partners. I was going to propose to him with part of the money. Had it all planned out. Within 24 hours, my phone became a hotline for people I hadn't heard from since high school. Suddenly, my second cousin Brad, who'd blocked me on Facebook after I didn't lend him money for a motorcycle, was texting about family obligations and sharing the blessing. My ex-coworker from 3 jobs ago called to congratulate me, then casually mentioned her student loans in the same breath. My neighbor, who'd never so much as borrowed sugar, dropped by with a sob story about her kids' medical bills. Robin watched all this with the fascination of someone studying lab rats. It's amazing, he said, how fast people come out of the woodwork when you have something they want. The irony wasn't lost on me later. Day 3, Robin quit his job, just didn't show up. Called his boss from our kitchen while I was making coffee and delivered a speech he'd clearly been practicing about pursuing new opportunities and exploring financial freedom. I stirred sugar into my mug and tried to process the fact that my boyfriend had just quit his source of income without consulting me. When I brought this up, he laughed. Babe, we've got almost $9 million. Why would I waste time in a cubicle? Our money had become we so fast I got whiplash. That weekend, Robin suggested we celebrate at Mastro's, the steakhouse where a meal costs more than I used to make in a day. Fair enough, big win, big celebration. But then he ordered the $200 Wagyu without looking at the price, and when I instinctively winced, he got this look. What's wrong? He asked, loud enough that the couple next to us turned around. Nothing. Just, maybe we should talk about budgets and... Budgets? Robin set down his wine glass. Izzy, we won the lottery. We're millionaires. Acting all worried about money is just going to make you miserable. I paid the $400 tab and told myself this was normal adjustment period stuff. By week 2, Robin had researched Tesla models and started following luxury travel accounts on Instagram. He'd mention cars or trips in this casual way, like he was just thinking out loud, but his eyes would track my reaction. You know, we could really afford that house you liked in the hills now. That vacation in Bora Bora you always talked about. A Tesla would be so much better for the environment than your Honda. Everything was suddenly possible, and somehow that made everything feel like a test. How much was I willing to share? How quickly could I say yes? My friends started treating dinner invites differently too. Suddenly, I was always expected to grab the check. Not asked, expected. Like winning the lottery came with an automatic subscription to funding everyone else's social life. When I suggested we split a $300 dinner bill 4 ways, my best friend Jenna gave me this wounded look and said, "Really, Izzy? After everything. After everything." Like our 10-year friendship was a debt I'd never repaid, and now the bill had come due. That's when I realized I hadn't won millions of dollars. I'd won a front row seat to discover what everyone really thought I owed them. Month 2 was when Robin stopped pretending this was temporary insanity and started acting like he'd been promoted to chief financial officer of my life. He'd wake up around noon, because why rush when you're unemployed by choice, and spend his mornings researching investment opportunities. I've been thinking became his favorite conversation starter, usually followed by ideas that involved significant portions of what he'd started calling our portfolio. The day he suggested we buy his brother a car, his unemployed 28-year-old brother who'd been between opportunities for 3 years, I realized Robin wasn't planning to get a job anytime soon. Ever, maybe. It would just be a loan, he said, showing me a listing for a $35,000 pickup truck. Tommy needs reliable transportation to find work. Tommy, who'd been borrowing cars and making excuses for a decade. Tommy, who'd never paid back the $500 Robin lent him in 2019. That Tommy. Maybe Tommy could start with a used Corolla, I suggested. Robin looked at me like I'd suggested we buy his brother a horse. Izzy, we can afford to help family. Why are you being weird about this? Weird. That was Robin's new favorite word for any time I asked questions about spending 5-figure amounts on other people's problems. Weird to think that winning the lottery didn't automatically make me responsible for everyone else's financial happiness. But Robin was just getting started with the financial planning. My sister Beth called on a Tuesday. We'd always been close, but something in her voice was different. Hungrier. Izzy, I need to talk to you about something important. She'd been thinking. Everyone was thinking so much these days about her mortgage, 30-year loan, $280,000 left. The monthly payments were killing her, and wouldn't it be amazing if she could just focus on her kids instead of worrying about money all the time? I'm not asking for charity, Beth said. I'll pay you back. With interest. It's just, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for our family to be free. Free. Everyone wanted to be free with my money. I told her I needed to think about it. She said she understood, but her voice went cold in that specific way that meant I'd already disappointed her by not saying yes immediately. That night, Robin brought up Beth's call before I did. Your sister mentioned she talked to you about her mortgage. I stared at him. She called you? She was worried you seemed hesitant. She didn't want you to think she was taking advantage. Right. Beth was worried about taking advantage, so she called my boyfriend to strategize about how to get $250,000 out of me. That's definitely what people who aren't taking advantage do. Robin settled onto the couch next to me with his laptop. He'd been researching Beth's mortgage online. Apparently, that's how we made family decisions now. Look, if we pay it off, she saves like $200,000 in interest over the life of the loan. We'd actually be helping her build wealth. The math was sound, the presumption was staggering. We? I said. What do you mean? I mean, since when is my sister's mortgage a we decision? Robin closed the laptop. Izzy, I thought we were partners. I thought we were building a life together. We are. But you want to make unilateral decisions about major financial commitments that affect our future. Our future, my money, our future, his logic, my wallet. I paid Beth's mortgage 3 days later. Not because Robin convinced me, but because the alternative was listening to both of them explain why I was being selfish with money that I'd literally won by luck. Beth cried when I told her, real tears, genuine gratitude, for about a week. Then she started sending me Zillow listings for bigger houses in better school districts. Meanwhile, Robin had discovered the concept of lifestyle inflation. Our grocery bills tripled because we might as well buy the good stuff. He bought a $300 coffee machine because it'll pay for itself. The Tesla appeared in our driveway on a Thursday. Not leased, purchased, fully loaded. $89,000. Robin was in the kitchen making his expensive coffee when I got home from work because I still had a job, like some kind of peasant. Surprise, he said, holding up the key fob. I figured you'd want the red one. I stood there with my purse still on my shoulder, staring at the most expensive thing I'd never asked for. You bought a car. I bought us a car. The Honda's been making that noise, and you deserve something nice. The Honda made that noise because it needed a $200 repair. I'd been putting it off because I was still adjusting to having money. Robin had calculated this purchase in terms of infinity dollars. How much? I asked. Does it matter? Look at it, Izzy. It's gorgeous. It was gorgeous. It was also a decision he'd made unilaterally with money he hadn't earned while I was at work making money we didn't actually need anymore. We should have discussed this. Discussed what? Whether we could afford it? Robin laughed. Babe, we're millionaires. The whole point of having money is not having to stress about spending it. That night, I tried to talk to Robin about budgets, about maybe discussing major purchases before making them. He listened with the patience of someone humoring a child who's explaining why vegetables are scary. Izzy, he said when I finished, I think you're having trouble adjusting to our new reality. It's normal to feel anxious about money when you've never had it, but we don't have to live like we're poor anymore. Our new reality, where he made financial decisions and I funded them, where my discomfort with his spending was a character flaw I needed to overcome. I went to bed that night wondering when exactly I'd become the unreasonable one for wanting a say in how my lottery winnings got spent. The Tesla was beautiful, though. I'll give him that. Month 4 was when Robin decided I needed an intervention. Not the kind where people sit in a circle and talk about feelings. The kind where your boyfriend assembles a jury of your mutual friends to explain why you've become a terrible person who needs to be fixed. It started with Jenna's birthday dinner. Nothing fancy, just the usual crew at Romano's, splitting appetizers and pretending we were still the same people we'd been 6 months ago. Except now I was the one everyone expected to grab the check, and they'd stop pretending it was anything other than mandatory. I'd been playing along for months. Dinner tabs, drinks, concert tickets. I'd become the group's unofficial sponsor because it seemed easier than dealing with the wounded looks when I suggested we split bills. But Jenna's birthday was different. She'd invited 12 people to a restaurant with a $200 per person tasting menu and somehow forgot to mention that detail until we were already seated. It's Prix Fix, she said brightly when I saw the menu. Isn't that fun? We all get to try the same thing. We all get to try the same $200 thing, plus wine pairings, plus tip, plus tax, for 12 people. I did the math while everyone debated appetizers they weren't paying for. $3,000. Minimum. Actually, I said, setting down my menu, I think I'll just have the salmon. The table went quiet. Jenna's face fell like I'd just announced her dog had cancer. But it's the tasting menu, she said. Everyone's doing the tasting menu. I'm good with just an entree. Robin kicked me under the table. Hard. Izzy's been feeling a little overwhelmed lately, he announced to the group like I was having a nervous breakdown instead of making a financial decision. She's still adjusting to everything. Everything. The fact that I'd apparently signed up to fund everyone else's lifestyle inflation when I bought that first round of drinks. Kiara, who'd never paid for her own Uber when we went out, leaned forward with concern. Are you okay? You've been different lately. I'm fine, I said. I just don't need a $200 meal. But you can afford it, Jenna said, with the kind of logic that only makes sense if you think having money means you're obligated to spend it on other people's celebrations. The table was staring, everyone waiting to see if I'd cave and fund their evening or continue being the selfish bitch who wanted to pay for only her own food. I caved, of course I did, handed over my card for a $3,400 bill and smiled while everyone thanked me like I'd done them a favor instead of being extorted by social pressure. Robin was quiet on the drive home. What was that about? He asked when we got inside. What about? The whole performance at dinner. Acting like you couldn't afford the tasting menu. Performance. Like my hesitation about dropping $3,000 on other people's food was theater I was staging for attention. I wasn't performing anything. I just didn't want to spend. Izzy. Robin sat down across from me with his therapist voice. I'm worried about you. You've been acting really paranoid about money lately, like everyone's out to take advantage of you. Everyone was out to take advantage of me. That was the problem, but saying that out loud apparently made me paranoid instead of observant. I think you need to talk to someone, Robin continued. This anxiety about spending isn't healthy. We won the lottery. We're set for life. Acting like every expense is some kind of crisis is going to make you miserable. I stared at him. I'm not anxious about spending. I just want us to be thoughtful about. You made Jenna feel terrible tonight. On her birthday. Because you were worried about money we can afford to spend 50 times over. Jenna felt terrible because I hesitated to pay for 11 other people's dinner. That was my fault, apparently. Maybe Jenna should have mentioned the prix-fixe menu when she invited everyone, I said. See? That's what I mean. You're looking for reasons to be suspicious of your friends, people who care about you, people who cared about my bank account. But pointing that out would just make me more paranoid, more in need of professional help to adjust to my new reality. That weekend, Robin disappeared. Not dramatically. He just mentioned he was going to hang out with his brother Tommy, the one who still needed that $35,000 truck, and didn't come home. All weekend. He walked in Sunday night like nothing had happened, kissed me on the cheek, and asked what was for dinner. Where were you? I asked. Tommy's. I told you I was going to Tommy's. For 3 days? Robin opened the refrigerator and started pulling out leftovers. We went camping. Spur of the moment thing. I figured you'd want some space to think anyway. You didn't answer your phone. Bad service in the mountains. He heated up Chinese takeout in the microwave like we were discussing the weather. Did you miss me? I had missed him. That was the worst part. Even knowing he'd blown me off for a weekend without discussion, even knowing he'd probably spent it complaining about my newfound money issues to his brother, I'd missed him. Next time, just let me know if you're going to be gone all weekend. Sure thing, babe. But there was something different in his voice. Cooler, like I'd just proven whatever point he'd been making to Tommy about how controlling I'd become. The social media campaign started the next week. Nothing direct. Robin wasn't stupid enough to subtweet about our relationship problems, but suddenly his Instagram was full of philosophical posts about how money changes people, and when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Jenna started liking and commenting on everything. So true, Robin. Real ones know. Kiara jumped in with her own wisdom about how some people forget where they came from. The next time Robin disappeared, another camping trip with Tommy that lasted 4 days, I didn't ask where he'd been. I was learning the rules. Asking questions made me controlling. Wanting communication made me anxious. When he came back, he had a tan and new camping gear that definitely hadn't come from his non-existent paycheck. Did you buy camping equipment? I asked. Tommy had an extra tent. And I picked up a few things. Like the $400 hiking boots by the door and the $300 sleeping bag stuffed in our closet. With what money? Robin gave me that look. The one that said I was being crazy again, asking reasonable questions about unreasonable spending. I used the credit card, the one linked to our account. Our account. My lottery winnings had become our account, but apparently our account was his personal shopping fund. How much did you spend? I don't know. Like 800? Does it matter? My discomfort with his secret spending sprees didn't matter because we had millions. I think you should talk to someone, Robin said later that night. About your anxiety. It's starting to affect our relationship. Our relationship was being affected, all right, but not by my anxiety about money. It was being affected by my growing realization that Robin had never seen me as a partner. I'd been a placeholder girlfriend who'd gotten lucky, and now I was supposed to be grateful that he was still willing to manage my good fortune for me. The final fight happened on a Tuesday. Robin had been gone for another long weekend, this time to help Tommy look at apartments in a city 3 hours away. He came back talking about investment opportunities and Tommy's brilliant business ideas and how maybe we should consider relocating somewhere with lower cost of living. Tommy found this amazing property, he said, pulling up listings on his phone. We could buy a house with cash, fix it up, and rent it out, guaranteed income. We, U.S., our investment in Tommy's real estate dreams. I'm not buying Tommy a house, I said. It's not buying him a house. It's investing in property. With Tommy. With my family. People who actually care about me. There it was, the accusation I'd been waiting for. I didn't care about Robin anymore. My reluctance to fund his brother's entrepreneurial fantasies was proof that I'd changed into someone cold and selfish. I care about you, I said. That's why I don't want to make bad financial decisions. Bad financial decisions. Robin laughed, but not the good kind of laugh. Everything's a bad financial decision to you now. Helping your sister was a bad decision. Being generous with our friends was a bad decision. Supporting my family is a bad decision. When did you become so fucking cheap? Cheap. That was a new one. I'd gone from anxious to paranoid to cheap. I'm not cheap. I'm careful. You're scared. You're so scared of losing money that you've forgotten how to live, how to be generous, how to be the person I fell in love with. Maybe the person you fell in love with never had $8 million to be generous with. And maybe that's the problem. Robin packed a bag that night. Not dramatically, he wasn't that kind of guy. He just quietly filled a duffel bag with clothes and toiletries while I sat on the bed, watching him erase 2 years of shared space. I need some time to think, he said, about whether this is still working. How much time? I don't know, however long it takes. He kissed my forehead like I was a relative at a funeral, grabbed his keys, and left. I sat in our quiet apartment, surrounded by all the expensive things he'd bought with my money, and realized I felt relief more than sadness. I slept better that night than I had in months. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer. Turns out, Robin's time to think had been very productive. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. Legal documents have a certain weight to them, literally and metaphysically. I signed for what would become the most expensive piece of mail I'd ever received. Inside was a 47-page lawsuit that read like a greatest hits album of our relationship, if our relationship had been a financial transaction with emotional benefits, which, according to Robin's attorney, it had been. Thomas Robin Holloway versus Izzy Ann Hilda claim for palimony, common law marriage recognition, and emotional damages. I laughed out loud reading that. Robin was suing me for $4.35 million, half the lottery winnings plus damages for emotional distress caused by defendant's drastic personality changes post-financial windfall. I'd become the defendant in the story of my own life. His lawyer had been busy during Robin's thinking time. Every time I'd handed over my credit card, now presented as evidence of our financial partnership and my implied agreement to share assets. They'd even included screenshots of his Instagram posts about our relationship, back when he was love-bombing me with public declarations, all of it twisted into legal proof that we'd been common law married without me getting the memo, but the real masterpiece was the psychological evaluation they'd commissioned. Some quack with a PhD had analyzed my behavioral patterns based on Robin's testimony and concluded that sudden wealth had triggered severe personality disorders that made me emotionally abusive toward my life partner. Dr. Patricia Weinstein had never met me, but she was prepared to testify that my reluctance to fund Tommy's business ventures was evidence of financial manipulation and control-based domestic abuse. I called 3 lawyers that morning. The first one laughed and hung up. The second one quoted me a $50,000 retainer just to review the case. The third one, Maria Santos, agreed to meet me for lunch. Your ex-boyfriend is either very stupid or very smart, Maria said, flipping through the lawsuit while I picked at a salad I couldn't taste. This is ambitious, I'll give him that. Ambitious how? Well, he's claiming you were essentially married under common law statutes that don't actually exist in this state. He's seeking palimony based on a financial dependency he created by quitting his job. And he's arguing that your money should be considered marital property from before you were married. She looked up from the papers. It's creative. Creative like artistic or creative like fraudulent? Creative like expensive to fight, regardless of whether he wins. Turns out lawsuits aren't about justice. They're about endurance. Robin didn't need to win. He just needed to cost me enough money and emotional bandwidth that settling would become cheaper than fighting. His lawyer, David Kellner, filed similar suits before. Usually people settle rather than go through the discovery process, my lawyer explained. Discovery. The legal phase where both sides get to demand every piece of documentation about your life, then use it to build their case. Robin wanted access to all my financial records, my therapy notes, my medical history, my communications with friends and family. He wanted to depose Beth about the mortgage payment, Jenna about our dinner arrangements, my mother about my personality changes. My entire life was about to become evidence in Robin's case that I owed him half my lottery winnings. Miss Hilda, when Mr. Holloway expressed interest in purchasing camping equipment, did you attempt to control his spending? I asked how much it cost. Did you make him feel guilty about the purchase? I asked where the money was coming from. So you subjected Mr. Holloway to financial interrogation for spending money from your joint account? It wasn't a joint account. It was my account. But Mr. Holloway had been contributing to household expenses prior to your lottery win, correct? He paid rent. So he had established financial investment in your shared living situation? Round and round we went, with Kellner twisting every normal conversation into evidence of my financial abuse. Meanwhile, Robin sat there in a new suit, probably bought with money from our joint account, looking like the victim of domestic violence. He'd grown a beard and lost weight, giving him this wounded, artistic look that played well for the court reporter. During his testimony, Robin painted a picture of our relationship that I barely recognized. According to him, we'd been planning our future together since month 3. I'd promised to support his entrepreneurial dreams and his family's financial needs. She made me account for every dollar, Robin testified, dabbing at his eyes with a tissue Kellner had helpfully provided. It was like she didn't trust me anymore. Like winning that money was more important than our relationship. It was a beautiful performance. I almost believed it myself. The legal bills hit six figures before we even got to trial. Maria's firm was bleeding me at $400 an hour for her time, plus $200 for her associates, plus court costs, plus expert witness fees, plus the private investigator we hired to document Robin's spending habits during our relationship. That investigation was illuminating. Robin had been very busy during his camping trips with Tommy. They'd been meeting with business brokers, looking at franchise opportunities, researching investment properties, all using information from my financial accounts that Robin had photographed with his phone. Tommy had been posting about their upcoming ventures on social media for months. I wasn't Robin's girlfriend. I was their business plan. The psychological evaluation Kellner had commissioned fell apart under scrutiny. Dr. Weinstein had based her diagnosis on Robin's testimony alone, without ever conducting an independent evaluation. When Maria deposed her, it became clear she'd never actually reviewed the legal criteria for financial abuse, just taken Robin's word that I'd been controlling. Dr. Weinstein's report got thrown out, but not before I'd spent $30,000 fighting it. The discovery process revealed the real scope of Robin's planning. He'd been documenting our relationship like a court reporter since the lottery win. Screenshots of our text conversations, recordings of our arguments, illegal in our state, but his lawyer argued they were admissible as evidence of emotional distress. Detailed notes about every financial decision I'd made. The Tesla purchase, which had felt impulsive and inconsiderate at the time, had actually been calculated. Robin had researched common law marriage requirements and knew that large joint purchases could be used as evidence of shared financial intent. He'd played me from day one of the lottery win, but Robin had made one crucial mistake. He'd gotten greedy. During his deposition, when Maria asked about his plans for the money, Robin couldn't help himself. He started talking about the business ventures, the real estate investments, the franchise opportunities he and Tommy had researched. He painted a picture of himself as an entrepreneur whose dreams had been crushed by my financial paranoia. "Mr. Holloway," Maria said, "when did you first discuss these business plans with Ms. Hilda? We talked about investing in our future all the time." "Specifically, when did you present her with your business proposal for the restaurant franchise?" Robin went quiet. "We talked about a lot of opportunities. But you never formally presented her with a business plan for your restaurant franchise? She wasn't open to hearing about it because she was financially abusive? Yes. So you developed a detailed business plan, researched locations, contacted franchisors, and calculated startup costs, but never actually asked Ms. Hilda to invest in your business? She would have said no. How do you know? Because she said no to everything." Maria pulled out a stack of bank statements. "Mr. Holloway, during your relationship with Miss Hilda, she paid your rent, your car payment, your credit card bills, your brother's truck payment, her sister's mortgage, and approximately $47,000 in restaurant bills, entertainment expenses, and personal purchases. Is that correct?" "Those weren't investments. Those were gifts. $47,000 in gifts, plus the Tesla, plus the camping equipment, plus the household expenses." Maria looked up from the documents. "But she never said yes to anything?" The case fell apart after that. Kellner tried to pivot, arguing that Robin deserved compensation for emotional distress, regardless of the common law marriage claims. But the evidence painted a clear picture of a man who'd systematically documented and manipulated a relationship for financial gain. The judge was not impressed, but dismissing the suit didn't erase the cost. Final legal bills, $287,000. 8 months of depositions, court dates, and sleepless nights. Priceless, in the worst possible way. Robin disappeared after the judgment. Social media went dark, phone disconnected, forwarding address unknown. Tommy's posts about their business ventures stopped abruptly. They'd moved on to easier targets, I assume. The aftermath was educational in ways I hadn't expected. Beth was furious when she found out about the lawsuit, not at Robin for filing it, but at me for not settling. "You spent almost $300,000 fighting him when you could have just paid him half that to go away." Jenna stopped inviting me to group dinners after the case made local news. "It's just awkward now," she explained. "Everyone knows you'll sue people." I hadn't sued anyone. I'd been sued, but facts don't matter when people need someone to blame for their discomfort. The friends who'd expected me to fund their social lives acted like I'd betrayed them by fighting Robin in court. They'd preferred the version of me who paid without questioning, who absorbed their expectations without pushing back. Fighting for my own money made me the villain in their narrative, but losing those relationships was like discovering I'd been carrying around a bag of rocks, thinking it was treasure. My mother, who'd warned me about everyone's changing behavior from the beginning, was the only person who congratulated me after the judgment. "You paid a lot of money to learn what people really thought of you," she said, "but at least now you know." She was right. The lawsuit had been expensive, but it was also clarifying. Robin had done me a favor, in the most expensive way possible. He'd forced me to set boundaries under legal scrutiny, to defend my right to control my own money, to refuse demands disguised as love. I still live alone, still drive the Tesla Robin picked out, because it's paid for and runs well. Still think twice before lending money to family, because I know the difference between helping and enabling now. Most people assume winning the lottery would solve all your problems. They're wrong. Winning the lottery creates new problems, expensive problems, problems you never knew existed. Robin got nothing. Tommy got nothing. The friends who disappeared when I stopped funding their lifestyle got nothing. I got to keep my money and lose my illusions. Turns out that was the better deal. Final tally. Legal fees, $287,000. Friendships lost, 6 family relationships strained. 2 romantic relationships destroyed. 1 lessons learned about human nature. Priceless money remaining. $8.4 million. People who actually love me. 3. Peace of mind. Finally achieved. Sometimes the most expensive education is the one that teaches you what you can't afford to keep paying for. The lottery didn't change me, it just gave everyone else permission to show me who they'd always been. Best $8.7 million I ever spent on learning that lesson.